Hello there, my name is Taryn. I am a self-taught portrait artist. One thing I really love to draw is fan art of different characters from movies and shows and games. So I thought I would make a tutorial today as I finish up this portrait. I started this back in December of Owen Painter. And I'm going to do a tutorial on how to do hair in this style. And just a few other tips and tricks while I finish up this piece. So first and foremost, this is an 8x8 drawing. It is on watercolor paper, and I am using a I am using a Pentel Quick Click mechanical pencil. I think it has an HB lid in it. I really like this one. Out of all the ones that I've used, it has a good grip here. You can extend your lid there with a click. Has a good eraser, extendable, and comes apart really easily to place the lid. You just put them in there. You can buy the replacements. You can buy them in different grades of graphite if you want darker or lighter ones. Let's see if I can put this back together. Okay, so that's what I'm using. One of my greatest weaknesses as an artist is that I cannot follow a reference photo line for line. I always have to take some creative liberty with it because somewhere in the process I start getting really impatient and I can't stand to sit there and try to recreate every little shadow exactly as it is. So while I'm looking at my reference photo, you can tell what photo it is, but it's not spot on. Like, his hair does not look like this. Like, I got the general shapes from the photo, but we're kind of doing our own thing with it. So I'm actually going to start here with the hair at the nape of his neck. He has naturally curly hair, and it kind of curls around here, and then it's a bit of an art to make it look like it's naturally curly and flowing, kind of wavy, without making it just look all poofed up in just one big dark spot. So I'm going to work this up in layers. I know this is all going to be dark here, so for starters, I'm going to do a quick, light lay down of graphite, and I'll just lightly go over all the area that I plan on adding more dimension to. So I want a few curls to go this way. So I'm going to lightly start sketching in the way the curls are going to lay. I use really light pressure, barely letting the lead actually touch the surface, letting it more so catch in the grooves of the paper surface. I'm going to create these little shadows here. I know that it's going to be darker right here. I can't really tell what's going on there, so we're just going to pretend that this is all a shadowed area and that the hair is kind of flowing this way underneath this strand here. And then there's a couple little stray hairs here. I like to use the really sharp end of the pencil for this because these are going to stand out the most and I don't want to have them smudge or have to redo them again. So I'll just really take my time with these ones. Now, because I know I'm infamous for smudging things with my hand, I'm going to find a piece of paper to put here so I don't ruin all this. Something I like to do when I am sketching in hair is kind of create abstract shapes. So when you're looking at a reference, you can see that the hair flows in and within itself. So you can see where it tapers off and a new strand goes over the top. It's kind of an interweaving puzzle back and forth with strands covering up and going underneath and weaving in and out. So I do a lot of these, like, they're not even really a teardrop shape, kind of a paisley shape, I guess you could call it. And this creates nice, like, curl tufts. So we're going to start with that one there. And there's kind of another one that comes out on top of it here. So I'm just going to lightly sketch that. Have that one run in there. By flicking the end of your pencil outwards, you will get a gradual gradient. And you can build that up to where the highlight is. The highlight will be usually in the middle of the strand. That is where the light is hitting it the strongest. And if you feel so inclined, you can go and very lightly add in the dimension and definition of the hairs while darkening it up as you go. Darker shades of hair I find are a bit easier to draw because you really can't mess them up. You can just keep adding to them. If you do get something that looks kind of wonky, you can always darken it and hide it. Whereas light colored hair, like blonde or white hair, is really hard to hide because it's not a colored hair. You have to more so fill in the areas that you can't see by filling in like the negative spaces between the hairs, the little shadows and things like that. And that can make it a little harder to draw than drawing dark hair, because it requires a little more planning in advance, especially if you're doing it in like colored pencil. When you're doing it in graphite, you can erase if you do get it too dark, or you can blend it out or add in fine hairs or whatever afterwards. But with colored pencil, you do have to kind of plan somewhat in advance where your hairs are going to be, especially if they're singular hairs that are going to be going over another hair, or where the shading is a little darker, or however it works. And it can make it a little more complex. Another thing you can do to get realistic looking hair is irregularities. So if you make your shading all too consistent, where the highlight is the same through every strand and it all joins up and the blending's really smooth, it kind of becomes more stylized, which is fine if that's what you're going for. But if you are going for the more abstract style of realistic hair, where it's unpredictable, it's not perfect, it lays differently, then you can go and kind of crisscross some of your hair and like lightly flick little random hairs across like that, just as a very subtle detail that it's there when you're looking at it. It doesn't stand out necessarily, but it's a nice detail to have. I use a lot of little circular motions when I'm doing darker areas because that helps get the lead down into the grooves of the paper better than if you're just skimming over the top, because you'll get these negative spaces where it's skipping over the pockets in the paper. Watercolor paper is made with kind of like a paper towel, for example, where it has all these little grooves. It's meant to hold things in it. So when you're doing watercolor, naturally the water's going to fill up that, the pigment's going to catch in that. So in this instance, when you're skimming over it with something that isn't liquid and isn't going to settle into those like pores of the paper, it's skipping over these, and it will leave white in those because the lead isn't intentionally reaching those areas. The lead is just going to skim right over the top. So by taking time to pause and blend it down into those, that's how you get the darker colors. So I'm going to have another layer here. It's going to overlap that piece here. It's kind of tucked behind his ear here, so it's going to run slightly over. Kind of goofed that up right there. His ear ends over here, not there. So the picture, the top of his ear is kind of showing, but not really. So I'm gonna have the shading of his ear come up here first so I know where I'm going. And I think I'm gonna add some hair here because I can't reach the top of his ear anymore now because I covered it up too much. So we're gonna make it look a little more intentional. So add a little bit of strands here. A little this, a little that. Voila. Okay. That looks better. And there's a hair here that kind of curls around. So I talked about this a little bit in the Iron Lung Part 1 drawing tutorial, that sometimes your reference photo doesn't make sense. Like you're looking at something and you know what it is, but you can't really see it. So you kind of have to imagine based on your own knowledge of how things look or how they work, what is going on there. So for example, his ear is really covered up here, so you really can't see like the anatomy of it. I've drawn a lot of ears, so I know the general shape where things should go, and I can kind of loosely block it in and get the idea of it. A big part of drawing is drawing what you can't see and making up for where pictures fail you. Sometimes that's one of the most fun parts about it, and sometimes it's really frustrating if you're doing a hyper-realistic portrait and you have no idea what's going on with like a piece of their clothing or something, and you're just like, well, I think it looks like this based on this one blurry picture, and then you find out way later after you completed it that you're completely wrong. Another thing is, if you really need it to be spot on, make sure you find lots of reference photos if possible. It will save you in the long run. I know I ramble a lot during these videos, and in the moment it makes sense to me but when I listen back while I'm editing, I'm like, what in the world are you talking about? So if there's ever a time I don't explain something very well, or you want to ask more questions, please feel free to, and I'd be happy to respond and try to answer your question either in a future video or in a written comment. And it helps me to know when I'm not making sense, so I know how to really button down a bit more with my answers and with when I'm making tutorials, so I know how to make it make sense, because in my little ADHD brain, this makes sense to me how I'm rambling, but to someone else, they might be listening to this and think, oh, I have no idea what you're talking about. You lost me 10 minutes ago. So my reference is a little bit of a gap here, whereas curl kind of sticks out a little more and starts going another direction. So I'm just going to loosely and very lightly sketch out what I think it looks like, and then compare it back and forth to make sure I got it right before I commit too much to this. There's a peak of 2 curls here, and then the top of his head is cut off. So we're going to have to use some imagination to figure out what in the world is going on up here. I don't want it to go too high, because if it gets too high to the edge of the picture, if this gets framed eventually, it's going to look goofy. Because the picture, the important thing about framing a picture when you're drawing it is keeping equal amounts of negative space, which I really didn't do that great of a job. I might add some more shading over here if needed to kind of make it flow a little bit better. Like if I was going to have him all on one side of the picture, it would be okay to have a massive negative space over here. But since he's kind of dead center, I want to keep at least this about 1/2 inch of negative space at the top of his head. I don't want it to run off, because if this is in a frame, it's going to look really weird if the top of his head's cut off, but the rest of the picture flows right to the edge or right before the edge of the paper. So we're going to take some creative liberties here and make sure his head does not go off the page. So I'm just going to give the impression of curls here, follow this light line I had originally. And because I'm feeling a little chaotic and I don't want it to look too smooth, we're just going to add a light lump of a little curl here. I don't know if this curl is actually here. It is now. I feel a little bit like Bob Ross when I draw hair of, well, this little tree, he lives here now. So in this case, this little curl, he goes here now. I'm going to add another one. Because, just because. So I want his hair to be wavier here at the top, because I kind of got it too straight down here. So just like with down here, I'm going to form tighter curls by making tighter semicircles. It's all flowing out from the crown of his head right here. So I'm going to have the curls go this way. Because he has short hair, it's going to taper off in more places than if you had long hair, where you wouldn't have these random strands ending. So I can end that curl there. Start one right here. But I want this one to not be a full strand, so we're going to run this one into this strand, and I'm going to have this negative space here that I'm going to make really dark. Remember continuity when you're drawing hair, that if there's a dark space here, the dark space is going to flow until it can't anymore. Don't draw a dark space here and then have it really light here. And that still feels too straight. So we're going to add some more. Let's see if I can actually get myself to do it right this time. I might end up regretting going so off the wall, but we're going to find out. I'm going to lightly sketch in the flow of his hair so I don't get myself in a mess. Because I'm a stickler for not ending a light strand with a dark pencil line around it. Like, it bothers me so much to do that. I have to make sure I blend it in. By tapering in the pencil flicks so the color is uniform and you can't tell that it was an outline. So that's coming along. I'm liking it so far. I don't know what I'm going to do with this when it's done. I've always drawn a lot of fan art. When I really get into a show or a movie or a video game or a musician, whatever it may be, I don't have a lot of time to just do little fan art things like this anymore. So usually when I do them, it's because I'm going to hang it up in my house. Where am I going to hang it? I have no idea. It might just go in my portfolio too. We will see. I actually have a house now to hang my art in. I lived with my parents for the longest time, and my bedroom was covered in posters, and I didn't have room to put more pictures, and then the problem was that it was an upstairs attic bedroom, so the walls were slanted, so you couldn't hang any framed stuff on it. There was like 2 walls that you could actually put something on and hang it vertically. The problem with that was that was always where like the bookshelf and stuff was. So it's really weird to have a house now with lots of wall space and places to hang things where they're not going to fall off. And I'm still reeling in that. And I still have no idea what to do with all the space that I have. I've been here for over a year now, and it's really weird. So I've been slowly accumulating a lot of art prints from like Goodwill. And when I see artists on like Etsy, I will buy their original arts and prints, and I love supporting artists, and I love keeping money out of AI's hands and keeping jobs out of AI's hands. I will not hang something that's made of AI in my house. It is not allowed. So I am going to absolutely fatten the pockets of every little artist that I can find. I commissioned an artist here a few months ago to draw a lovely portrait of Mapucho that I lost last October, and I have it in a protective little case for now because I need to get some matting cut for it, and I need to get a frame bought. Okay, so as I get to the top here, I'm getting a little less concerned with the details, so I'm going to add a little spot here. But for the most part, I'm probably just going to lightly shade this, add some light dimension, and call it. I will be really glad to finally get this done because it's been driving me nuts. I keep seeing it sitting on my desk, and I really love how it looks. Like, this is one of my favorite things I've drawn in a long time. Why haven't I finished it? I don't know why. And it keeps looking at me, and I have other stuff I need to be working on. Like, I'm supposed to be putting my taxes together, and I'm supposed to be finishing a commission, and I have all the stuff I'm trying to get done for an art show this summer, and what am I doing? I would love to get back into making more fan art because I haven't in a really long time. For the last couple of years, I've been making a lot of Western art, which isn't actually my favorite thing to make. It's popular where I live, and because for a time, I wanted to be a professional artist, I was making a lot of that to sell and go to art shows with and take into galleries, and I do enjoy that. I'm not going to say I don't. It's just, I got so focused on making that stuff that I quit making what I actually liked, and I didn't make time for making stuff like this anymore. So for the last couple of months, I've been in an art block, and I've just been kind of annoyed with myself and trying to get out of it and just re-motivate. So I took a long time away from posting art or making anything, really. And then that hurt more because I love drawing. I love it. It is one of my favorite things to do, just to bring something to life like this. It's very satisfying to me. And I hate to give it up. Life's definitely busier now. I actually have a real job. I used to work for my neighbors, and that gave me a little more time to actually make things because it wasn't an everyday job. So that's been an adjustment to have to go to work every day. I am part-time, which is nice, so I still have the rest of the day, usually, to make things. But usually also when I get home, you're so just tired, you don't want to do anything, you want to lay around all day, which isn't great. So I have to really kick myself in the rear and make sure that I'm getting up and doing what I'm supposed to do. I have no idea what's going on here. This is some wackadoodle wavy hair here, which I feel falls wonderfully under this quote that I saw on Facebook a couple months ago, and I don't remember who said it, but it gave me a laugh, and I laugh every time I think about it. But it is... let's see if I can butcher it. Unlike AI, my art is made with zero intelligence and is handmade. This is just all complete nonsense. Looks good enough, though. Good enough. Now, I don't always have the, oh, it's fine, it's good enough attitude, but in this case, it's not. It's not going to a gallery. It's not going to win me any awards. It's just for me to smile out for the next foreseeable future and add to the list of completed drawings. So it's done when I say it's done, which is something I really love about just making stuff for fun. Commission art is hard for me because it's done when the client says it's done. Like when you finish a portrait for someone, you're like, okay, wow, we got that done, we're good. And you show it to them and they don't like it, and they're like, well, I don't know, could you tweak this, tweak that? And you're like, but to me it looks good. So when your brain is shut off from that project and is like, no, it's done. And then you're like, nope, you gotta go back and fix this. And you're like, but I like how it looks. You're fighting with yourself because it's done in your mind. Like, it doesn't need anything else. But you have to change it because the person paying you for it doesn't like it the way it is. So you have to keep tweaking it. All that to say, commissions aren't my favorite thing because my brain isn't programmed to change things when it's done. I am a, okay, it's done, let's move on type of person. Unless it's something I'm like really, really like fixated on where I want every detail perfect. And even then I reach a point where I'm just, no. A couple years ago, I did a hyper-realistic portrait of Joel from The Last of Us Part 2 based on his game model. And I wanted it to be the most realistic thing I ever drew. And I worked on that thing for months and months. I drew every pore on his face. It was this massive close-up picture. I think it was like 16 by 20. And it was just taking so long, but I wanted it to because I wanted to draw every little hair in his mustache and every pore, every scar, the highlight on every hair. The problem was I also wanted to take it to an art show. That was at like the end of May. So middle of March, here I am, trying to hustle this thing out while I'm working a job. And it was going well until it wasn't. And I did end up having to rush the end of it just to get it to the art show, which I regret. I wish I just hadn't taken it. So I never sprayed it with a fixative when it was finished. And it's still in a frame. And the plan is eventually to get it out and redo it and finish the parts of it that I didn't do justice to. Like, there's areas that definitely need more detail or could have been blended better. And I would like to take it out and just update it a little bit and make it exactly what I wanted it to be originally. But that takes so much time to do. And I haven't felt extremely motivated in a long time to do that. And it's not a picture that I always think about. Like, it's in my portfolio, so I don't see it all the time. And when I see it, I'm like, oh yeah, I need to finish that. And I don't think about it when I have free time. So one of these days, I will do that. I will finally return to poor Joel and give him the face he deserves. I think a lot of this is just going to be pretty abstract. Like, I don't want it to flow off the page necessarily, so I'm probably just going to taper off the shadowing here. I really don't have a lot left to do. Mostly just touch up shading and fix the things I don't like. Or things that I did when I wasn't using my reference photo and I really should be. That's another toxic trait that I have, is that I will stare at a picture for long enough, the reference photo. I'm like, oh yeah, okay, I know what that looks like. So then I'll get lazy while I'm working on it, or I'll work on it somewhere where I can't have my phone out. And I'll be like, okay, yeah, I know how a shirt lays, or I know how wrinkles in a shirt look. They would lay like this. And ideally, yes. If you were sitting here with your knee to your chest, your shirt would pull up like that. Not in this picture, no. There's a singular slight wrinkle, and it doesn't look like the picture now because I got lazy and I didn't look at the reference, which makes it different. It makes it unique. That's fine and diddle, but golly, I need to get better about actually looking at my reference photo. I am so lazy about that. There are some pictures I will not let myself work on unless I have the reference up, which is good because, yeah, I will go off the wire and just be like, oh, yeah, this is going to look so great. And then you look at your reference next to it a couple hours later if you've been working on it without it, you're like, ooh, that's not great. I really don't like what I did here. I got really lazy one night while I was working on it, and I wanted it to have this, like, abstract fade-out thing with this design, like, flowing down his arm and then out. And now I just really don't like it because the rest of the picture isn't like that. So I'm going to erase it. Do a light blend over and just, I don't want all these layers on a shirt too separated. Like, I like how soft it is here, so I'll probably just blend a lot of it all together. I don't know what I want to do with this here. How far do I want your arm to go? It feels kind of goofy, I don't know why. Do the end of his sleeve here and call it. I don't feel like I need to define his arm a whole lot, so I'm just gonna add some light shading for dimension and the hem of his shirt. And I think I am gonna call it there. I'll probably see something else I don't like and eventually change it again. But for now, there's that. So before I sign it, one thing I really like to do with graphite pictures, I will do this with ink too, but specifically with this one, get a block eraser like this. Now you can go in straight up and just erase it, but sometimes your eraser will get dirty like that, and I have done it too many times where I erased something I shouldn't have with a dirty eraser and it dragged pigment all over that you didn't see on your eraser. So I like to clean my eraser first. So what I will do is take a scrap piece of paper and just erase until the shavings that come away are white. If you have any that are tinted black and you can still see black on your eraser, keep cleaning it. It probably really wouldn't matter for this picture, but you see, stuff like that. That is what you don't want to have happen while you're erasing your actual picture. Is that sometimes you will have like a piece of colored pencil or some piece of charcoal, pigment, whatever it may be, and it'll get embedded in the eraser here, and you won't know it until you erase something, and then you really can't get it out. So really take your time with this step, because it is so worth it to not have to fix something later because it got grounded to your paper's surface. That looks pretty good to me. So now I'm going to set this here, and I'm going to gently erase all of the white. And you'll notice that even though it's white, the shavings are coming out black. That's because of how much graphite I've transferred with my palm here and smudged over while I was drawing. So I just like to go along. You can use a smaller, like handheld Cricut eraser for these areas closer to his hair if you want to make sure you don't accidentally catch the detail. I'm too lazy to go find mine, so we're going to do it this way. And I'm just going to erase all of the white area, and that'll take off any excess smudged graphite and make it look really clean and crisp. Ideally, you should put, again, me being lazy, put something over the other side of it to hold down while you erase, because as you erase, it's going to require a lot of friction, and it might end up sending your drawing shooting across your desk. So it's just better to do it the right way. I tell you as I do it the wrong way. I like to do this too when I'm doing my ink drawings. After you finish inking, go through with the eraser over the top of the ink and erase the pencil lines underneath, so that when you color, if you're coloring with like alcohol markers, the alcohol markers are infamous for grabbing excess graphite and dragging it around. It dirties the tips of your markers, makes them muddy looking, and sometimes it'll drag it through your colors and your blends look really garbage. So it's a good tip for that too. And it just makes your line art look better overall. Just make sure your ink is thoroughly dried from your line art first, and you might want to test a patch of it on a spare piece of paper before you go over an eraser with it, in case your paper is more prone to having the surface rub off, or if the pigment is more likely to fade when it's rubbed with an eraser. So just be sure of those things before you go and erase your precious piece of art. But anywho, that is what I've got now. Let me find a marker. I probably should use a small one. I don't know where my small one is. You have no idea how many of these I buy. Oh, I found one. Okay. So I use the Faber-Castell Pit Artist Pen fine liners. I like to use the small ones, sometimes the medium or the fine, the F one. Those work too. I like this one because it gives me a nice, small, little, delicate, dainty thing. I heard is still a smudge there that I don't like. Get away from me. The pencil keeps trying to come over here. Okay. Carefully just erase that. Voila. Okay, now I'm going to sign it. And something else, if you're going to sign your piece, think about which corner it's going to look better, and unless you want to sign on it, you can. Personally, I like to sign where it's white so that if I make prints of it later and I scan it in, I should scan it before I sign it. Again, I'm lazy, so I'm going to do it this way. I sign where it's white so I can erase it right off, and I don't have to do some like copy and paste, photoshopping, manipulation, whatever to get it off with the graphite. Sometimes it ends up on there and it's easy to fix. You can copy and paste a little chunk off of a nearby area and overlay it. So looking at this and imagining if it's in a frame, where would the signature look good? It would. I feel like if I sign it over here, it's going to look too off on its own. Look kind of goofy. I feel like if I sign it right here, it'll flow better with the piece. So I am going to do that. So I'm going to do my signature first. Year of completion. And just because we can, we're going to put Yule Painter's name there. Put in quotations. I know it's a quote. Oh boy. So we got that. And I did. Sometimes I don't remember to do this. I like to write when I started a piece and when I finished it. I didn't do it right. I just supposed to put the day. But so be it. So I'm going to sign it here as well. And then I like to add all my info in case it ever gets sold or given away. Not going to sell this one, but at the year of completion. Oh boy. And here we go. Completed picture of Owen Painter as Lucas Pierce from Tiny Beautiful Things. I just love it. So happy with it. Well, thank you all for watching. Hopefully this isn't 45 minutes by the time I get posted, but hopefully you took something away from it, or you enjoyed the ramblings, whatever it may be. If you have ideas for future videos, please feel free to drop them below, and I will try to address them in a future video. If you have any questions, comments, concerns, or critiques, feel free to leave those too. So be it. Yeah. Peace out, Girl Scouts.